See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
My name's Antonio Harrison. I'm Dr. Antonio Harrison, but most affectionately known as Coach Doc. Born and raised in Pasadena, California, still reside in Pasadena. I am a virtual reality fitness coach. I'm state board certified as a behavior scientist. I do talks, podcasts, a lot of different stuff. I like to create and have fun.
That's awesome. So I've been listening to your podcast. It's Doc's Daily Dose. Is that right?
Yes.
So I started listening to Like Son, Like Father and skipped everything else because I just couldn't. I'm like, what happens next? I just so appreciate how honest and, this is the way it was. There's no hard, doesn't seem like there's hard feelings. I mean, of course there's feelings and there's baggage, but you're just also honest and open about everything. And I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you. No, it's interesting. We've always had that relationship, and as funny as it sounds to be in a dysfunctional family, you either hide the elephant or you talk about it because you can't pretend it doesn't exist.
Well, and so I just spoke to my sister telling her how much I really love your podcast. And I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and there was a lot of chaos and drugs and nobody will talk about it.
Huh.
When COVID started, we were doing a Zoom and I was like, what's a happy childhood memory? And everybody got upset because I brought up the past.
Oh, wow.
So I really appreciate, I really feel so excited. I was so excited. Your sister came on and then your mom. I want to know everything, and your brothers.
Yeah.
I just really love that you're not scared of the past. The past is what it was.
Yeah, and it defines a lot of who we are and where we're at now. It doesn't necessarily define our future, but it's a part of us. And the reason I did it was so that I don't know beyond my parents. My grandparents passed away when I was really young. So to have 3 boys who carry on our last name, and I want them to know what their family is. We don't have a family tree or ancestry album book. So this was something where I said, it'll be intriguing. It'll be something that they can dive into when they're a little bit older. And I hope that one day they turn around and do it to me and their kids do it to them. And it could be something we have as our heirloom.
I really hope that's true, because I have said that I feel like my podcast is a legacy for my daughters so they can know me more. And yet, they're adults, they're 26 and 22. And I know the youngest doesn't really even listen. When you interviewed your brothers, you were like, you obviously haven't been listening. So you're obviously every episode pouring your heart out.
Yeah.
What do you think about those who you want to listen and don't listen?
It's tough. As much as you do a passion project and it's for self and it's something you love, and, the cliche, like just do what you love to do and your tribe will find you. That's true. And I felt that. But at the same time, you also want people to give you some sort of response to it, some sort of gratification of like, I see you.
Right.
Just recognition. And the way with my kids, the way that I'm setting it up is I have a treasure chest that every month I have a little alert on my phone that says boys treasure chest. And whatever's going on in my life that month or whatever I'm feeling, I'll take something and I'll put it in the treasure chest. And when the youngest turns 21, I'm going to give the treasure chest to all 3 of them and say, this is for you. I've been keeping it for 21 years. And then that podcast will be on a USB. So I'm hoping that will entice them to say like, oh, wow, let's dive into this together. But you never know. And it may, quite frankly, be my grandchildren who actually pick it up and listen.
I thought my mother's mother died in a mental institution. And then I just found out my mother passed away when I was 18. So she's not around to ask, but I asked my uncle and he was like, no, she got remarried and had a whole nother life.
Oh, wow.
After that. And so he was able, because it was whatever years before HIPAA, he was able to get all the forms of when she was institutionalized. And I just think the past is so important to who we are. Like, I don't know that woman, but she's my grandmother. She's important to me. And I just really appreciated that your feelings are the same. Like, who are these people that made me me? And I said that to my sister, and she was saying that she's not her past. She's only what's coming up. I just really related to it, and not everybody does, is I guess my point.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Couldn't wait to hear your mom's voice. I just wanted to hear, like, who's the mom?
Yeah, she ties the other end, right?
Yeah. Because and then I was at one point so shocked they were still together.
Yeah, and they still are today. And it's there's three sides, right? His, hers, and the truth. I'm kind of in the middle trying to sift it out, but you can tell that family has been strong together through our ups and downs. So,
Well, I don't want this to be about your dad. I mean, you've already done that, but what was it like? I mean, I've had two brothers go to jail, and one brother died from a drug overdose. So I understand how it affects your life, but you seem to be so together, and the things you're doing as a father are not what you were taught by your father and his father. Oh my gosh. And then even just this episode, I realized your mother's father was no role model. And so it's so great to see that you broke the cycle.
Yeah. And you know what it was? I had to grow up really fast. And when you are shared information that adult at a young age, you've got a choice, right? Am I going to move forward, or am I going to hold this resentment in my heart? Because I physically saw what my dad looked like when he was on drugs, like I could see in his eyes, like, that's not him. And so though he was in and out of jail and would do dope in the house, he was also my sports coach for every sport I played from 4 years old on up, until high school. So like, he was there for pivotal moments. My mom was always there. I've said it before. My dad didn't necessarily teach me what to be in a man, a husband, or a father, but he showed me what not to be. So I was smart enough to say, well, I see what that does. I don't want to do that. I got to figure out what the opposite end of that spectrum is, but like, not that part. And as unfortunate as it sounds, the neighborhood I grew up in, it was commonplace.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like, oh my God, the world's crumbling. This is a disaster. I would look at my friends who didn't even have their father in their home. I would go and see, when I went to private school for middle school and high school, I would see these really affluent families whose fathers were workaholics and never around, or alcoholics. And I was like, people are people.
Right.
Doesn't matter what's going on. People are people. And so I always knew I wanted to be a good dad, and that some of the things I just had to be careful that I didn't fall into those same traps. And, it's a struggle. I will say, I constantly stop as I get older and my kids get older and say, am I doing the right thing? I think about my eldest son, who's now 12. They're growing up in a different time, a different technological age. I was with my dad multiple times a week playing basketball with grown men at the park, hanging out for hours. I've never done that with my kids. And it's something I wish I did, that they were interested in doing, but they're just not. They'd rather play video games.
Right.
And so I'll sit down and try to play video games with them, but like, it's just not my cup of tea. So I just knew that I didn't want what I saw, and that I had to do something different. And quite frankly, I got lucky in the sense of school was easy for me academically, and I could play ball. So I had avenues to show me light at the end of the tunnel. And there were people along the way saying, like, you got something to you. Don't get caught up in this.
Yeah. So I know you because I'm doing the VR Supernatural. And so you're a coach on there. And
yes, I am.
Very inspirational. I mean, I'm an evangelist. It's just disgusting. I can't even stand myself. I sound like one of those people. But in the podcast, and I think this was taped 5 years ago or 7 years ago, you said?
Yeah, seven or five. The timeline's all crazy now.
Yeah.
With the whole COVID thing, I feel like I've missed 3 years of my life.
I feel like I have to. You did say you smoke. Do you smoke?
I do.
You do? So that was surprising. And then I don't know why, because, I don't know. My mother
Well,
died from smoking. Don't smoke. So,
as a fitness professional, for someone to be like, "Oh my God, you smoke?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's something I picked up when I was 12 years old."
right. I smoked from 14 to 20. So I totally get that too.
And will there come a day where maybe I'll stop? Yeah, but I don't want to. So
It's not hampering you in any way. But I just wanted to tell you too that I know we had completely different, obviously, childhoods. But one of the things that I just laughed out loud was you got in trouble and you ran away but hid in a tree. What was that about? I can't remember. A car was that about?
I got in trouble at school. It was in 5th grade. And we went to a book fair where they used to have in the cafeteria, the book fair.
Yeah.
And you would get the little yellow bags with the Scholastic books. And the cashiers were just throwing the kids' change in the bags. And me and my buddy looked at each other because our recess was about to start. And they brought us back to classroom. And everyone just threw their bags on their desk. And me and my buddy looked at each other like there is hundreds of dollars in the room. And so when they went to recess, another kid overheard us talking and he said, "I want to come along." And we went in and took everybody's money. And then that was already far enough, but we went even further and decided to dig into the teacher's purse as well as her refrigerator and take her soda that she drank every day. And we got caught. And when I finally got picked up and sent home and my mom was like, "Your dad's going to handle this," I was like, "I'm out of here." And I climbed out of my window, but I didn't know where to go. So I just climbed in this big tree we had in the front yard to the very, very top. And when my dad got home, my sister ratted me out and told her that I was in the tree.
Well, it made me laugh because when I was 15, I just had my restricted for 12 days. My mom went out of town with my stepfather, who was the driver's ed teacher at my school. And I stole the driver's ed car, but I didn't know how to drive. And I backed it up into a ditch. And I was so scared when they got home, I hid in my sister's closet. So I ran away, but into the closet.
Right?
Where am I going to go? I don't know. That's funny. So it just made me laugh. You've been smoking since you were 12.
Yes. Bad habit. You shouldn't smoke.
No, don't smoke, kids. My daughter smokes. My mother died from smoking. So it took me 2 years after she died to quit. And so I just can't believe my daughter smokes. I'm like, no. Anyway.
Well, it's interesting you say that because you saw that happen. And on my side, I've seen my dad smoke cigarettes all my life and dope. And he's 74 years old and kicking. Right. So for me, it's it's okay.
Totally. My stepmother smoked and lived a long life. So I totally get that it's not everybody. It's not a death sentence. I get that. Besides Supernatural, what do you do and what is your end goal? How do you want to help the world?
So outside of Supernatural, I have the podcast. This past year, 2021, I've done 15 plus invited keynotes, talks, and workshops for a variety of industries, including my own scientific field. Most of the talks are on wellness or leadership. Mm-hmm. There was a big trend towards diversity, equity, inclusion for a while once all that happened. So I've done that. I also have clients that I work with one-on-one or in groups, and it's usually in terms of habit change or reversal or lifestyle change. And I've also got a merchandise clothing line, a journal that I created. Mm-hmm. And I taught graduate school for a long, long time. I want to say it's 14 years. I stopped this past year. I might pick it up in January. And then I've coached high school football for 14 years, 7 as a head coach, took 2 years off. And then this last 7 has been as an assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. But I guess what I want personally is to leave something for my boys. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I would love to be able to have a huge plot of land where I build my home and they can come if they want to build their home acres away so they don't have to see me. And just so that the family always has somewhere to come back to. But in terms of general world, what I want to give is I kind of have this motto. I want people to stop, stay still, breathe, and think. I don't think people think enough anymore. They just react to everything. Mm-hmm. And I take time out of my day as a deliberate practice to just think. Mm-hmm. And people ask like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, sometimes I'll have something specific I want to think about. And it doesn't mean a solution. It could be something trivial or something philosophical. And I'll just sit on the back porch and I'll think for 45 minutes. Sometimes it's just, let's see what my brain does today. And I'll think for 45 minutes. It's a muscle just like the rest of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't exercise it, well, we know what happens to your body when you don't exercise it. So I want to stay sharp as a tack as long as I can.
Yeah.
And I want to be thoughtful in everything I'm doing. And so that's my main mission is, do I want to inspire people, help people, motivate people? Yes. But to me, that's a byproduct of getting them to think for themselves.
That's awesome. And I love that it's about your kids, because that's what I think, my kids are always like, going to dream big. My big dream is for my children.
Yep.
What can I do for them? So it starts off bigger and then it just comes back to family, I think.
Always. Family's number one for me. People in relationships is where I put all of my currency.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Do you want to talk at all about your dad is Black, and what nationality is your mother?
Well, she was Hispanic.
What does that mean? Now she's not?
My mom's dad was Hispanic. I might be giving away the next episode for you. But my mom's dad was Hispanic and her mom was, I want to say German or Irish. But a couple years ago, one of my grandmother's best friends called my mom out of the blue on her deathbed and said, I've been holding this secret. And I think your mom would want you to know, but I have to tell you, your dad didn't leave you guys because your husband was Black. It was because he wasn't your dad.
Ooh, I've got chills.
So I always grew up as Black and Hispanic and white, but really just grew up as Black. Here in America, that's what it is, right? Like if you've got Black blood, you're Black. And I grew up in a Black neighborhood with Black family members. So then my mom does what she does best, her Googling detective skills. And she found out that her father is an Italian immigrant that came over and lived in New York. And she went out and actually met him. And she's got brothers and sisters. And so within a, snap of a finger, I went from Black and Mexican to Black and Italian.
Oh, interesting.
The good thing is Antonio still works. So like, we're all good,
That's so interesting. Oh, and her mother never told her, and the stepdad stepdad never told her.
When he went off to go for grad school, my grandmother already had the older brother, my mom's older brother. And when they got together and then he left for grad school, when he came back, my grandmother was pregnant with my mom. He just, with the old Hispanic culture, was like, I'm going to take care of my family. Nobody will know this. This is my daughter. But it made sense for my mom why he always treated her in such an abusive manner, because I'm sure he had all kinds of resentment built up.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening to the podcast really made me realize we're also flawed, but there was so much grace always given, especially you and your dad too. Your dad, you're very much like your dad in the way that he's just like, well, that's the past.
Yeah. You can never cry over spilled milk. I'm very calculated like my mom, but a lot of people don't realize how calculated my dad is, in the sense of, like me, we both weigh the consequences before any decision we make. Mm-hmm. We just are willing to take bigger risks, right? We're saying, can I get away with this? I think I can. Let me take this risk. And once it happens, I'll never forget, my dad always told me, especially when I first started driving, he's like, if you ever get pulled over by the police in anything you're doing, driving, walking around, and you've been doing something wrong, don't be a jerk to the officer. You got caught. Mm-hmm. And if you got caught, take your punishment, move on. There's no reason to cry about it. You got something facing you right now. Why are you going to worry about what has already happened?
Yeah, that's how he seemed. Yeah. What are your feelings about, because you never really you never question him in all the episodes. You never contradict him or say, well, this is how I felt. You just let him talk, which was awesome. But what are your feelings about, there was so much, he just was in and out of jail, which must have been hard.
The interesting thing was, it only got difficult for me twice, which was, and I think as we kind of get to that part later in the series when we start talking about myself a little more, which was my senior year of high school, right? Like I was just extremely successful my senior year and he missed all of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the part about the high school senior athlete of the year award.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had just got out the day before and then missed it.
And missed it because he had to go use. And that was like the hardest, the thing I remember the most that was most hurtful. And the other part was after I had already had my children, having to tell him, I'll write you, I'll talk to you on the phone, but my kids will never visit you in jail the way I did. I will never put them inside of LA County waiting room to go see you behind plexiglass with 50 other people. So I love you, but you'll miss out on that. And to think that my kids wouldn't have a chance to be with Grampies, they call them, that was tough. But in terms of growing up, it was mixed feelings because you would see this moment of intoxication on crack cocaine and you would go, this is scary, but tomorrow he's going to coach me in a basketball game completely sober and be loving about it. Right.
So there was two of them.
Yeah. And I knew this other one wasn't my dad.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't my dad. So I just looked at that guy as that's somebody else who, when that happens, either I keep to myself or I go hang out with my friends, play basketball.
Yeah. My brother died in a taxi cab as he was leaving rehab.
Oh,
I get that using is not really a kind of a choice, because he was intelligent, Is that how you feel about your dad? That it's just like beyond his ability to make the choice?
I think where I really finally understood it was when I got to college and started to experiment with things outside of weed and marijuana and alcohol. And I'm an open book.
You talk about it in the podcast.
I won't ever smoke anything that comes in rock form, put anything up my nose or a needle in my arm. Right? Like I've seen what that stuff does. But I'll tell you, the first time I ever ate mushrooms, it was the most magical experience of my life. And the moment I came down, I said, that's too good. I can't do that on a regular basis because I'll get locked in.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I know then. That's a once a year thing. I'll do that when I do that. But like the human experience is a spectrum, right? And we're supposed to feel all of it. And if all I feel is this elation all the time, I'm not experiencing the human experience.
Yeah.
That's where I really understood, like he was given something by his brother who he trusted. And that thing was 1,000 times stronger than mushrooms. I get it. If the mushrooms had the strength of that thing, I would have been in trouble.
Yeah. So he's 74, you said now?
Yes.
And is he still using?
No. Since the last time he came home and finally got done with his parole, he's not using cocaine or crack anymore. I will say his alcohol intake has increased.
Yeah.
Part of that is he's alone. He's bored. My mom goes to work. We all have families and jobs, and he's at home.
Yeah.
The nice thing was he actually found a job, and it's a job that fits perfect for him, that now started putting money in his pocket and was keeping him going. But then you had now I got money in my pocket. So, and he gets off work, at 11 a.m. or 12 in the afternoon. So then he's still at home for a while by himself. So, but again, as dysfunctional as it sounds, I'll take that over what the other stuff was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
you can hear the love. My goodness. It was, and I loved why you named it Like Son, Like Father. You want to explain that?
When he was in jail at one point, I wanted to get this tattoo here. And I wanted to say like father, like son, the common phrase. And he wrote back to me and he said, I've always strived to raise you to be better than me. And you've already accomplished that. So now I strive to be more like you. Would you mind getting it like son, like father? I was honored. And I said, yeah. And that's one of the interesting things is when my dad goes to jail, he becomes the most clear.
Right.
He has time to think. He has time to sober up. He has time to read, work out, write, and use his intelligence and heart and emotional intelligence to the maximum, which is extremely high, extremely high.
Mm. Oh, I asked about your mom because her nationality, because your dad's family didn't like her.
No, it was completely based off of race. Outside of my grandmother, Granny, my dad's mom.
Yeah.
She loved my mom, but everyone else, it was purely about race. But the thing is, we were never around them anyways, because they were either dealing dope, doing dope, or gang banging.
Yeah.
And so my dad was like, I don't want my kids around that. And so we knew them for a small, brief period when we were younger. And I remember going to like a family reunion at the park. And within 15 minutes, a fight broke out between family members who were part of a rival gang.
Oh, no.
And so it was like, my dad was like, yep, this is why.
Any reason to be mad at somebody else, really.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, our family was literally my mom, my dad, me, and my sister. That was it. Once my Nana and my granny passed away, that was it.
So tell me about your family, your nuclear family, about your wife and your kids.
So my wife's Peruvian and Colombian. She's born and raised in Southern California, Eagle Rock. And we just celebrated on November 11th, 11/11. We just celebrated, we've been together 13 years. That was our 9th wedding anniversary.
Awesome.
My oldest son is 12. He's a 7th grader. My middle son is 9. He's a 4th grader. And then my youngest is 7 and he is a 2nd grader. It's a lot of testosterone in this house.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's nerve-wracking. It's a learning experience. All I ever hope is that when they become adults, they are hanging out with each other, having barbecues with their families. They're going to be great human beings. I'm trying to raise them that way. But what they do with their career, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. My daughters are 4 years apart. And my oldest daughter was so mean and rude to my youngest, but now they're best friends. And I'm just so happy about that because, they call each other first when anything happens. That's
my biggest hope, is that they have that type of bond. And interestingly, I think COVID increased that bond for them, because when a lot of kids who are just, one child, a single child, only child in the household, it's hard as a parent if you were just locked in the house with one child to constantly give attention. They had each other to play with. They didn't skip a beat. They were outside with each other. And so they've got their collective bond as well as their individual bonds. And I just hope that those continue to grow. So your sister was saying that she felt like you were the favorite of both your mom and your dad. Do you have any fears like your kids might feel that way in any way? Are you making sure that, they all feel? I was always like, I have to do both, same thing for my one kid that I do for the other, You have got 3. It's interesting. They will joke at the dinner table being like, so who's your favorite? And they'll look at us and they'll be like, and they all think they know whose favorite is whose. But there's 2 things I specifically do to talk to that. One is how you were mentioning, like, I always have to do one for the other. My wife's like that, and I'm not. I will tell my boys, like, he can do that because he's 12. I can get this for him because he's 12. You're 7. You can't have that yet. Yeah. I'm not going to just buy you something because I bought him something. Yeah, that's smart. And the other part is I do hangouts. So there's 4 weekends in a month. The first weekend, a Saturday, is a date night with my wife. The second weekend is a 2 to 3 hour hangout with the eldest. Third is with the middle one. Fourth is with the youngest. And I just keep it in a rotation every month because it's cool to have the family as a group, but I need to have a bond with each kid that's different because they're different. Yeah. We go do whatever they want. My middle one always wants to do some sort of art. My youngest always wants to go to dollar store and just walk around. And my eldest, he'll do things like, can we go look at the Hollywood Walk of Fame? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Cool. That's smart. Yeah, that's really good. I was
stalking you because now I have all the podcast in my head. What's everybody look like? And I saw a picture of your dad, I assume, with giant muscles. And I was like,
Yes.
Oh, he wasn't kidding. He wasn't exaggerating. I mean,
He's the Hulk. Yeah.
he's like, nobody messed with me. I've got 20-inch muscles. I was like, yeah, right. And then, no, he does.
He does.
That was really funny. And then and I saw a picture of your beautiful wife and your sister. So I've really been stalking, but I don't think I saw a picture of your mom. And I really feel like I need to know what she looks like.
It's interesting. My mom never wanted to be on camera.
Oh, okay.
It was in part because of, and I think she would say it out loud, her weight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
Even when I look around the house, there is one from when I was a newborn and then one from when I was in high school. And that's it. That's it.
Well, one of the things you say is I see you, and I am a photographer and I photograph women. And I had a series called See Me. And it was all these women who are overweight. They chose words that described who they are, not what they look like. And I painted them on their back and took photos of them from the waist up. I love that you say, I see you, because I think that's all we're all hoping for, a little recognition. And especially when a woman's overweight, to know that they're loved beyond their body, they're not their body. That's my goal in life, is to show women that they're beautiful, despite whatever little hangups they have, and that they're worthy of being photographed.
It's interesting because sometimes you see kids who have an overweight parent try to hide that parent from their friends. And I never did. And it was because the outward appearance of my mom, was it overweight? Yes. But I saw my mom for who she was on the inside.
Exactly.
Because I loved her. I still love her. If it wasn't for my mom, I would not be sitting here talking to you, period. Though she doesn't hear that part, even though I say it, she hears the other parts of, oh, he's got a better relationship with dad, or, oh, no one considers what. No, that is why that's how I see my mom. My mom is what has kept the Harrison family together. Without her, we wouldn't exist.
I'm glad to hear that, because until I got to hear your mom's episode, everybody kind of said, oh, well, that's mom. Well, that's her. And as a mom who obviously makes mistakes and does the best she can, I was so, honestly, I was so excited to hear her and just get a sense of who she was. And that, anyway, I'm glad you're saying that, because she was always there. She was consistent and picked up the pieces, even if she didn't do exactly what you wanted her to do.
That's the other thing too. I've realized, family, though they are blood, they are human beings with a different experience. If my dad was not my dad and my mom was not my mom, would I probably hang out and party with my dad? Yes. Would I probably seek out to do that with my mom? No. But would I sit down in a classroom as a student classmate and have a conversation with her? Yes. So it's okay that those relationships are different. But when people are on the other end of those, sometimes they can feel like, oh, well, they like that person more than the other. And it's just not the case. It's just a different bond. Right.
Exactly. I was upset with my mother for a lot of years, because even when I was young, she was a single mom with 6 kids and 3 different dads. And it was a crazy house. And she wasn't there. She was just, because mentally she was like, this is too much. Obviously, we were only 9 years apart between the oldest and the youngest too. So it was a crazy house. But so until I became a mom and realized it's hard, I was a single mom with 2 kids. And I just not only forgave her, but realized there was nothing to forgive her for, because she's just a person with 6 kids. We hold our parents up to this weird standard, and we're just people, right? You feel that way? You're just a guy who had 3 kids and now you have to be something. So I appreciate you very much. I appreciate what you're putting out in the world. And also, I know you because of the Supernatural. I just appreciate the way you're very inspirational, motivational, and I just really appreciate that.
I appreciate you mentioning it. It's an interesting thing. I'm just being me, right? And when you get love back from being you, it can be hard to accept.
Well, I saw, even you said something to somebody. They were saying, oh, on their deathbed, they want to hear your meditations. And you're like, oh, I needed to know that because I've been worried about doing voiceovers. And your voice is so smooth and beautiful. Like, how could you not know that about yourself? So I get that we need outside sources sometimes to tell us we're good enough, we're exactly where we need to be, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And quite frankly, I think anyone who, whether it's the supernatural coaches, people who do speaking, yourself podcasts, whether we realize it or not, at least I've realized it about myself. A lot of the stuff I say in terms of inspiring or motivating other people, it's just stuff I need to hear for myself.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
We're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right. We talked about it. I see you. We just want to be recognized.
Right. Right. My favorite thing about a person is when they can be vulnerable and open and raw and honest. And I just really, really appreciate that about you, because even my own family members are not that way. I don't know how I came out this way, but I love when it's just a real conversation. And your podcast is, I hope everybody listens to it.
I hope so too.
It's so good. I can't wait to find out what happens. Oh my gosh, your dad's history is so crazy.
Yeah, his first 20 years, 25 years of his life is you would think it's a movie.
Well, and it was playing in my head like a movie. And then the one thing he was so matter of fact about it and had no remorse. The one thing that I was like, what the hell? Where they were punching people out and taking their money. I was like, what the hell? But he was a kid.
He was a kid, and think of what he endured growing up.
Right. But what I appreciated was that he's not pretending to have remorse. He's like, no, we thought it was fun. That's what I mostly appreciated about the whole conversation between you two. You just let each other be who you are.
Yes.
So cool. So cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that part of your life.
Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm. Everybody else, you should listen.
It also caused a little bit of tension with, I think, my mom and I a little bit, because I was speaking from present day perspective about how I felt about things, and she had a different feeling. It's just a very unique entity in itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's just fascinating, and everybody is going to hear it differently. She was even saying that, and just what I was just listening to, that we all have we all go through the same experience, but come out different from it. So we're all going to hear what we think we're hearing, not really what's being said sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I always try to keep in consideration with my boys is, yeah, we all live together. We all are experiencing the same things, but it is our own human experience. And I can't pretend to know what it's like for them.
Right. Right. This has really been really lovely. I really appreciate your time and saying yes to my podcast.
Yes. Well, thank you for inviting me. Anytime. It was a lot of fun. And as you can tell, I enjoy running my mouth.
Well, it's good because I like listening. Perfect match.
To you, to everyone listening, to everyone who potentially listens to the podcast or has listened, I appreciate you and much love always.